Are ready to go live. And we are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Nice.
Welcome, everyone, to FlexworkTV. This is a live stream produced by my company, Incluzion. I'm Jabril Suleiman. Today is a special day because we are bringing to you one of our company pitches, company interviews through FlexWork TV. This is a discussion that is very important to me because it allows me to bring on another company that is doing something in the talent space, whether they're hiring someone, whether they have a position open, or whether they have their own initiative where they are increasing diversity in the talent space. So today we have Kamo Akutera. He is the founder of Trep House. I mean, we had a great discussion. We've talked several times, and this is someone that I'm excited to have on to talk about his initiative and talk about diversity in the space. So, Kamo, introduce yourself, man, and how's it going today?
Thank you, Jabril, for having me. My name is Kamo Akutera, and I'm a serial social entrepreneur in the Midwest, working to support diversity, inclusion, equity for underrepresented freelancers, founders, etc.
Hey, man, it's great having you on today. So one of the things that we talk about with inclusion, of course, is just providing diversity in the space, right? And when we talk about the space talent acquisition, a lot of people say they think about particularly just working at a job at a desk. And of course, COVID has changed that. For some time now, we've been pitching the fact that, of course, remote access to work or remote access to project-based work, freelance work is the future, especially around democratized access to economic empowerment, right? Whether that's building a business as your own as a solo entrepreneur or working for someone in a way that provides you with optimal work-life balance, right? This is speaking directly to the professionals. How are you approaching diversity in the space with Trep House? Explain a little bit more about what Trep House is as well.
Absolutely. So Trep House is a venture development platform, as well as a community and a creative capital studio, as it's called, focused on supporting founders, creatives, professionals of color. In the way we're approaching diversity, obviously, our whole initiative is centered around, Black, brown founders. But we are also looking not just to create freelance opportunities, but we're really big on creating wealth building opportunities. So with the creative capital studio side of things, we're really looking to provide freelancers, creative remote professionals, the opportunity to be involved with building corporations or building startups and getting equity positions in building those startups with the creative capital that they provide.
So let's talk about that creative capital side more. And is this the side that actually coincides with the venture part as the venture platform? Just explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, so creative capital is a form of capital that is based on your skill sets that you've honed. Because money is just a medium of exchange and it's a form of capital, most people, automatically default to money as the only form of capital, when in fact there's about 9 different forms of capital, creative capital being one of those. And there are groups out there who are taking specialists in their respective areas, core competency experts, and saying, hey, if we can all provide our respective skill sets to this effort, then we can share in the fruits of the labors versus, just getting paid as a freelancer and being out the equation, and getting a modicum of what you could get as an actual owner. It's kind of flipping that model and saying, you don't need to come in and be an accredited investor in the traditional sense. You can come with what you have and who you are, and that's valuable enough. And we can actually define what that value looks like in exchange for your input into a venture.
Now, so we've talked before, and to a big extent, you've explained this is like a startup studio model, correct?
It is actually, yeah, it's the startup studio model. It's the type of startup studio where instead of, saying, hey, we're just going to outright throw money at the issue, it's like, well, what stakeholders will we need involved if we did have the money to actually build out these startups. And then it removes the money from the equation at the front end and says, hey, would you be interested in building 5 startups as a marketing professional, or 5 startups as a legal professional, or 5 startups as a design professional? Whatever your specialty is, if it serves the startups that are being created, then would you like an equity position in exchange for that?
Right. Awesome. Now, so one of the things is that I see with this model is that it provides, people, diverse individuals with access to deal flow. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So even if it's just, you're involved on it and you're like, I just need to get paid as a freelancer, straight cash, there's a plethora of opportunities, not only in the products and services that we would build in-house, but there's also the opportunity to serve the clients who we're providing venture development services for. So we want to be able to have, a multi-pronged approach to revenue generation. Yes, building ventures, that's all fun and everybody, dreams of that. But we know everybody has to pay the light bills. And, nowadays more than ever, we have to keep the actual money flowing, because, your electric company doesn't accept creative capital, to keep your bills on. So we understand the challenge in, holding out for an equity, liquidity event. But we also understand that, if you are able to buy into those types of ideas, in the long term, you can build wealth. But in the interim, yes, there's clientele who just need your marketing services, and it's just a flat cash transaction. So, we really want to make it to where we're not just asking you to put all your hope into this venture working out 2 years from now. We're finding ways to cover the short term, medium term, and the long term capital needs of these professionals.
Awesome. The name Trep House, it is TREP House,
Correct.
right? Not to be confused with the well-known version Trap House.
Absolutely.
But is there a play on words there in regards to how you named it, how you named the organization?
Without question, the goal in the naming was to, elicit a response from people to kind of, raise the eyebrow and, cock a head, like, why'd you name it Trap House? And of course, when I first say it to people, they automatically be like, you named it Trap House. And I'm like, no. Let's enunciate Trep House with an E. And they're like, well, where'd that come from? Like, it's a breakdown of the word entrepreneur, taking the trap out of entrepreneur. And it actually used to be an in vogue way of saying you were an entrepreneur back in like the 90s, kind of coming to the early 2000s. And then it kind of fell out, of popularity saying it that way. And, it's kind of like, well, I see the value in what, everybody kind of heralds is like the way out of the hood, which is trapping. And it's like, it's a mindset that goes along with, the illicit activities. So what if we could take the mindset, the grit, the creativity, the resilience, the robustness, just that ingenuity that comes from being put in a position where you literally have nothing. And what if you could transmute that and just kind of really show different ways to bring in revenue that doesn't require you to look over your shoulder every 30 seconds. So really want to say,
Right.
you're on the right track, but you're on the wrong train as far as, the trapping mindset and glorifying that lifestyle. And it's glorified because who are the first venture capitalists and angel investors in our communities? A lot of times, drug dealers, gangsters, criminals. Like, it has, it's infamy associated with it, but it's like a lot of times, people, think back in nostalgic times when Nicky Barnes was giving out turkeys in New York. So it's like we have these weird dynamics with like the criminals in our community, because it's like we know they came from like an extreme lack, and it's like they didn't really, have too many options. So, saying how can we take that mindset and say, hey, you're not totally wrong. You just need a better product or service than what you're currently, selling.
And in a certain way anyway, the Trap House is a collaborative environment, where multiple entrepreneurs have the ability to flourish.
Yeah.
Of course, it's debatable on the type of entrepreneurship, of course, but
Yes.
nevertheless, right? So I definitely understand the correlation there. I definitely do. So in addition to the venture wing and the startup studio, there's another component, correct?
Yeah.
Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so there's a community, the Trep House community. It's on a platform that's similar to Mighty Networks. It's called Tribe, and the goal there is to actually foster, the development of relationships, trust building, because one of the major gaps that plagues our community, the Black and Brown community, is the trust gap. not really being able to trust. And I was thinking about this before the call. Co-founders are often a requirement for VCs, angel investors, for them to make these investments. But oftentimes, Black and brown founders, Black and brown professionals, we're going at it from a solo approach because we just can't find that person who really shares our sentiments, or who has our type of hustle, or our grit and our grind. And we think that that's like the cool way to go, like self-made, did it all by myself. Like, but there is no other group that takes pride in being a lone ant. I'm like, because we're more like ants than we are bears. We
Right.
aren't solitary being species. We very much so operate and flourish in a communal type of environment. So entrepreneurship is even more, I would say no different, but I say even more so entrepreneurship, because it is so difficult naturally. And then you add on the fact of being Black and brown in that space is like the last thing you want to do is be in that journey alone. So really wanting to create that type of community where people can get off of Facebook, get off of LinkedIn, get off of the things that have all these other distractions, and just really talk about being a Black or brown professional in the innovation economy or the gig economy with others who can relate to them, and definitely provide different ways to address those challenges.
Yeah. So how has COVID affected your business model and your outlook and how you're growing the company? And even your own understanding of how freelance and flexible work or remote work happens.
Yes. So COVID threw a huge wrench in my plans. Originally, Trep House was designed to be a physical location, primarily because we don't have brave spaces in our community oftentimes where professionals of color can congregate and actually work on ideas. We may pass each other in a local coffee shop if we even have those in our community, or at the library. Just any type of third space that is more publicly accessible. But as far as a space that's specifically designated for assisting in the flourishment of Black and brown professionals, we lack those spaces. And so everyone was initially telling me before COVID happened, I've been working on this project for a few years, and everybody, was saying, hey, it would be an easier lift if you go virtual. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it would be, but that defeats the purpose. We don't have spaces where we can go and feel like, I know when I walk into this building, I could possibly meet my next partner, my next investor, my next customer. Like, we don't have spaces like that. So I'm like, I really was driven to have it as a physical location first. I did have plans for a virtual component after the physical, manifestation pilot kind of just, worked itself out. And COVID made me flip that model. And, I guess it worked out for the better, because I came to market a lot faster. I mean, I was already 3 or 4 years in, and the week before everything got locked down, I was, actually filling out, setting up LOIs to submit to several landowners to get ready to move forward with building the space out of shipping containers. So I was like, I'm going to do this physical thing. It's going to happen. And then that weekend, in the third week of March, it was like, okay, things are shut down. And then that next week, I'm like, this is not going to be a quick thing. This is going to be enduring. So I can sit here and mope about the fact that, I was so close to getting this physical thing set up, or I can pivot and go to the virtual side, because everything from what I can see is about to go virtual. So let me go and kind of get ahead of that run and, front run the effort. And so pandemics are considered great leveling events. And that's something that I've, been sharing with people ad nauseum since all this happened. Great levelers are events that cause disparity and inequality to be completely leveled across the board, to where it pretty much is almost like a reset of the matrix. And there are 4 events throughout history that have been shown to be great levelers from the Stone Age to present. And those are mass mobilization wars, like, the Great World Wars, state collapses, violent revolutions, or pandemics. And so we're living in unprecedented times where, we can actually see in our lifetimes a flip of the power dynamic with, those that we see as like the powers that be in the big wigs. Like, all this is going to come crashing down. We're witnessing it right now. And it's like, how do we step up to the plate and make sure we're ready to take the helm, and grab the baton and, run with everything we got?
Hey, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, this initiative and what you're doing, the outlook on it is amazing. Some will say, well, Jabril, aren't you doing stuff around freelancing and remote work as well? First of all, there's so many different perspectives and approaches to this that there's no one all in one solution at all to approaching providing equality in terms of access, especially access to sustainable work, right? Paying work, virtual work, safe work.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that we talk about now with Incluzion,
Mm-hmm.
is being able to access safe work. Not to scare anyone, and everyone. There's a lot of people that are optimistic about going back into a physical office and so forth. But when you're talking about populations, Black and brown populations that have disproportionately had less access to some type of what they used to call it telework. Black people having 19% access, and Hispanic Latinx people only having 16% access to telework. And look at the correlation between the amount of deaths from COVID, especially because of that. Then things come into perspective, right? And this is not a one-all solution. Inclusion isn't the one-all solution. It's multiple fronts, multiple ways to approach this problem, right? And it is a problem. So, Kamo, I appreciate you and what you're doing and your perspective and how you are approaching the issue from a startup studio perspective, especially. And one of the things that you were talking about, and being able to bring a community together, of course, in a collaborative environment. We've had so many people that have approached us and looking for co-founders, right? And I've had to, in many ways, turn those people away because there was really no way. It's hard for us to facilitate a co-founder engagement through our jobs board or our freelance marketplace, just because the basis of our community and even our revenue stream as a startup is around connecting people around money, right? Getting paid.
Yes.
So one last thing, how or are you addressing that? And if so, how are you addressing, being able to match people around co-founder relationships?
Yes. So a lot of our work is focused on professional and personal development. So we have a pretty huge, it's a sizable catalog of personal and professional development courses that we're going to be slowly releasing. And the reason for that is that I feel like a lot of our professionals don't have the soft skills and haven't really been, groomed or cultivated to understand what it means to be a good co-founder, to be a good actor in the entrepreneurial space or the gig work, side of things. And so it's like kind of learning those things first and understanding what it takes. It's just like being a good mate and, in a romantic relationship, there's things that you have to do if you want the person of your dreams to see you as the person of theirs. And so, I oftentimes correlate co-founder dynamics to actual romantic relationships, because it's the same thing. A lot of co-founder situations don't work out, a lot of marriages don't work out, and it's because a lot of people don't know what it means to be a good partner or a good mate. They haven't really learned themselves and worked on themselves. They aren't self-skeptics. It's more on the external, whose fault is it outside of mine. And I think a large part of our problem is just that, is that we're not really looking internally and saying, what is it that I could possibly be lacking that didn't make me a good, mate for that person? Before I put any blame outside of, myself, what could I have done differently to, possibly improve the chances of success in that dynamic? And so we're providing that venture development piece via the courseware. We have a mentorship network that's included in that. And then, the marketplace is where I see the collaboration between Incluzion and Trep House, because the marketplace is where we have freelancers, professionals, businesses that provide vending services and products to founders of color. And so creating that dynamic where, you could be getting services from this freelancer, and it's like, oh, this person actually seems like they could make a great co-founder, because, I know what I'm lacking as a founder, as a solo founder, and what I need to complement me. And I can see, and assess that this person has that. And now, I'm more readily, selecting somebody who makes an actual good fit co-founder.
Right. Exactly. You talk about the soft skills, and that's one of the things. That's another component and passion that we talk about with Incluzion, and being able to build those soft skills, emotional intelligence, just the different acuity levels that were needed to operate in a way that no matter what, even if you're working for someone else at a job, but you're working remotely, there's a level of self-starting that's needed. You know, even just to get out get out of the bed, you know, with the right mindset to go to work and to sit at your computer in your living room and not go in and interact with anyone, right? There's a certain mindset that's different than going into a work environment where, you know, you're smelling coffee from other people, other types of coffee. You know, there's that morning, that water cooler talk, you know, so there's certain things there that are needed, right? And so, and I feel the same way. You know, there's multiple fronts that can be leveraged, multiple ideals that can be leveraged to approach this and to solve the problem around soft skills, the soft skills gap, especially. So I appreciate you pointing that out, really, and I really love what you're doing with your initiative. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to say to wrap it up? I did post your website. It's here for people to go to, and it's trep.house, correct?
Correct. Yep, that is the domain. Yeah, final thoughts. Just really don't ever close yourself off from, you know, having that next conversation with someone. I just connected with a brother yesterday who, you know, has to be my twin separated from birth, you know, just in the way he's looking at his philosophy. He actually has his own venture studio, de-risking, you know, the startup process and the scale up process. And he messaged me about an hour ago, like, man, we should have met a year ago, bro. Like, this is amazing how we just are on this, you know, clicking like this. But he actually brought up Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger's friendship and how they were in their 40s when they became, you know, best friends. And, you know, he was like, that's one thing that he has a fear of, is getting so kind of like fixed in, you know, his circle and his ways as he gets older, that, you know, he starts to close off from being open to new relationships, new friendships, new business dynamics. So really just keep reaching. You never know when that next conversation will be the one that, you know, truly changed your life. And that's truly what the nature of our existence is as social creatures, is we really have to start to work together, because we are in dire straits. We know what's going on with the election season. I mean, we have to work together. Like, we don't have any option. There's nothing that is more important than that for me at this moment. So everything I do is centered around finding ways to like really create a massive community where everybody's doing their thing, because nobody's one way is the whole way. So
that's true words, very true words indeed, man. So I really appreciate your time and you coming on, Kamo, and just talking with us and everything. And hey, look, if you want to come on to FlexworkTV, if you're watching this broadcast on any of the social media networks and you want to come on and have this same conversation, if you are a company and you're looking for diverse talent, you're looking for the best way, let's talk it out. Let's talk about it. HR managers, recruiters, talk to your internal marketing teams. Let's get a plan together to come on here and have these frank conversations. Talent, if you want to exhibit your talents, professionals, if you want to exhibit your talent and come on and have a conversation and make a plea to these remote companies, these companies that are evolving into remote first companies, to hire you, then definitely come on as well. We want to have all of those conversations here on FlexworkTV, brought to you by Incluzion. Until next time, peace. Y'all go out and vote.
Absolutely.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
You too.